Hey everyone, it's Kelly. Thanks for joining me. I'm back today with a new Shimmerz design team project to share with you. And because if I don't mention at the beginning of the video, I will definitely forget at the end of the video. So I do want to mention to you, if you head to the Shimmerz shop and you do some shopping there, be sure to mention my name in the comments at checkout and you will receive a free surprise with your order. So I'm going to be working on something a little bit different today. Normally I create 12 by 12 layouts for my Shimmerz projects, but I am transitioning a little bit in what I am going to be doing for my memory keeping, and that involves a happy planner, which is what I have here. I also have this die set from Lawn Fawn that I received from Christmas for my mom, and I thought it would be a lot of fun to use the Shimmerz paints to color those dies in. And there you can see I have a bunch of photos, and I have a template that I have set up on Photoshop to create the collages that I use for the Happy Planner. That way I know that the photos fit within each well on the Happy Planner and that they won't be too large. If you're interested in more information about that, please let me know in the comments below. I went ahead and ran these dies through my manual die cutting machine, and they didn't come completely out of this watercolor paper, so I just left them intact, thinking that that would be an easy way to color them because they are an intricate die, but it actually ends up working out a lot better if I remove these pieces from the watercolor paper, which you will see me do later on in the video. I showed you a bunch of different colors before I started watercoloring, and the colors that I grabbed was Concrete Shimmerings, Vibes Mango Tango, Oh Say Can You See Colorings, Caribbean Sunset Spritz, Velveteen Green Vibes, and Ruby Spritz. Now I only end up using a few of these colors. I don't end up using all of the ones that I showed you at the beginning. I do use the Concrete Shimmerings, the Velveteen Green Vibes, and the Ruby Spritz. Those are the only three colors. And when I started doing this watercolor, I just added the color into these little dishes on the left side, just a watercolor palette there. And I used a wet brush to apply the color to the watercolor paper. And it ended up diluting it quite a bit. It looks pretty rich here, but as it dries, it becomes much, much lighter. It was almost a pastel green and a pink. And I really wanted to try to have a true red and green tone, or at least as much of a red and green tone that I could have with the ruby and the velveteen green. So I go ahead and I add a few coats, and I will use my heat tool to dry these, but I'm just not really happy with how the color turned out, and it was all because the brush was wet. If I would have used a dry brush, or if I would have just used the nozzle itself to paint these, it would have been a much truer color. But that's one of the great things about these paints. You can really get lots of different tones and variations depending on how much water you add to the color when you're using it. So here I have removed the dyes from the watercolor paper, and I still have a wet brush at this point. I'm still thinking that if I just keep adding layers, I'll like how it turns out. And I do actually end up going back and cutting another one of those dyes and recoloring it a little later on in the video. And you'll see the difference when I use the nozzle versus using a wet brush. Now I went ahead and cut out all of the photos that I'm going to be using for this week's spread, and I'm just trying to get a general idea of where I want to position things. My main focus is the photos, and then I also wanted to make sure that I was going to position those colored die cuts in an area where it was going to work well. The photos that are on the Friday the 20th column, there's actually going to be 4 photos in that column, and I'm going to create a flip up with those photos. So I needed to make sure that that die cut that I colored with the Shimmerz paints wasn't going to be in the way when I flipped the photos up, so you could still see the photos underneath. Now I went ahead and cut another one of these strands of lights. I really like how this one kind of twirls, and that there's some bends in it, and that the bulbs are on the top and the bottom. I think that it just adds a nice element of fun to this die cut. And when I colored the first one and I removed it from the watercolor paper, it tore, and I wanted to make sure that I had a full strand of lights. So I went ahead, just cut another one, watercolor paper, and I'm using the nozzle this time to color these bulbs. And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit off camera. I forgot that I zoomed in very close so you could see me coloring these. but I am using the nozzle this time. It worked really well since this is such a small die cut. The nozzle fit really well on the end of those bulbs, and it really leaves a nice rich color. And when I used the heat tool to dry these, the color did not go all the way to the edge of the bulb. I had some white showing from the watercolor paper, but I was able to reactivate the paint just by spraying a little bit of water onto that craft mat and getting a wet brush, and then using the wet brush on the dry color. It did reactivate it slightly, and I was able to fill in those white areas. I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. I really like the vibrancy of the color. I think that this was the best way to go about coloring these to get that true, rich red and green tone. So now comes the time when I'm really just going to start decorating the planner. I do use a lot of the sticker books that Me and My Big Ideas has put out for the Happy Planner. And rather than explain what I'm doing, because I really feel like it's pretty self-explanatory, I am going to just kind of walk you through the weeks, or I guess this week, and explain what's going on in the photos. I do add journaling to my spread, but it's going to be hard for you to read at this distance. So I will just explain what everything is going on and what my journaling says. I do have my planner next to me, so that way I make sure that I tell you that the right things are going on. And I do just want to give a small disclaimer here. We have 2 new kittens in our house, and one of them has joined me during this voiceover. So you may hear some meowing or some purring during this voiceover, but I don't want to kick him out of the room because he will just make a bunch of noise trying to get back in. So let's go ahead and jump into what's happening with this week. So I'm going to take back what I said just for a quick second and explain what I'm doing here. So I am creating those flip ups with some washi tape, and I'm using my craft knife to cut the washi tape. And then I do make 2 small cuts right next to the photo, about halfway up the washi tape. So that way the washi tape does flip when I lift the photo. And I did some Christmas wrapping this week, and one of the photos that I'll explain in just a few moments is me wrapping presents. And I thought it would be fun to include the actual wrapping paper that I used on my presents this year as a decorative element in the planner. So I used the punch that you can purchase for the Happy Planner, and this is the classic Happy Planner. And I just punched out a few rectangles of that wrapping paper and added it to the spread. Okay, so let's talk about this spread now. I have been using the Happy Planner since July, and I am loving this way of documenting our memories. I use photos only from my phone. I edit from my phone, send them to Dropbox, and then I have the template in Photoshop, get it loaded in there, and then I print them off on 8.5 by 11 paper. It is a great way to get the photos and the stories that I may not use on a 12 by 12 scrapbook page, but that are still important and still make up what happens in my life. These are the everyday moments and the things that really tell the story of my life. This is the first video that I have recorded using my Happy Planner, so I'm not really sure the best way to go about explaining what's happening on the spread. So I'm just going to take it day by day, and hopefully it'll make sense as you're watching the video. But on Monday, I have 2 photos, one in the top and then one at the bottom. And then I added a journaling area in the center that is explaining what's going on in those photos. And then on Tuesday on the top, I have a take a photo with Santa sticker, because the top photo on the left on that Monday is a picture of Santa and an elf that we had come into our office. I do work outside the home, and I work for an orthodontist, and we had a Santa come in, and the patients could get their pictures taken with him, and the staff could too, and it was just a lot of fun. He was a great Santa, very authentic, and he just really was what I picture when you think of Santa. And then on Monday, we also, that bottom picture is from an office party that we had. Every year we have a carry-in at one of the offices. The doctor that I work for has 2 locations, so I travel back and forth between the 2 locations. And this was a lunch that we had at the satellite office. I have been working for this office for 15 years, and this was something that they were doing even before I started. So it is a tradition that has been happening for a long time, and it is a lot of fun. So on Tuesday, the photo that I have in the center is from a clinic meeting that we had. We have a meeting once a month, and this month we were learning some new tips and tricks with an intraoral scanner, which is just a fancy way of saying It's a camera that's on a little wand that you can wave around and take pictures of people's teeth, and it builds a model in the computer. I promise this is not going to be all dental talk, but I was the sample that they were using to scan. So a friend of mine snapped a photo for me, and I included that. And then I also included on the bottom of Tuesday, it is one of the rectangles that I cut with the wrapping paper, and then I just added a sticker on top of it. Wednesday at the top, I do have another journaling spot, and the photos on Wednesday, the photo in the middle column is of a fire truck parked outside our office. I normally work from home on Wednesdays. I am the social media coordinator for the office that I work for, and I do all of my computer work and social media website stuff on Wednesday from home because I do have a very long commute to the office. I live about an hour from each of our locations, so I have a 2-hour commute each day, and they are kind enough to let me work from home on Wednesdays, so that is great. But this day I actually went into the office and was working on a few things, and the office that I was working in started filling with smoke, so we had to call the fire department. Everything turned out to be okay. There wasn't an actual fire. It was something had shorted out and was smoking, and we caught it in time, so all was good. And then on Wednesday in the bottom column, I actually went and got my hair done that day too. So that was a picture of me sitting underneath the dryer as my color was drying. On Thursday, on the top column, that is, again, another piece of the wrapping paper that I used. I did add a circle sticker, and then I also added a word strip that says Christmas cookies, and I just cut it in half so it would fit better within that rectangular area. And then the photo in the middle is of a cookie tray that one of my coworkers brings in every year, and it is something I look forward to every year. They are amazing little treats, and there's a ton of different kinds on that tray. I love the sugar cookies she makes and the Buckeyes. Those are my two favorites on the tray, and that's what my journaling says in the bottom column. On Friday, that is where I have my flip-ups, and that is a photo on the top is of me and my nephew. We went to lunch with them that day. My mom and I went shopping, so we met up with my sister and my brother-in-law, my nephew, and the journaling just talks about where we went shopping. And then the photo on the bottom is another flip up, and that is of me and my mom, and all of these are Snapchat filters. There was a lot of fun filters that Snapchat had available during this time. Saturday was a very lazy day. I snapped a photo of my husband and our dog taking a nap, and my husband never takes naps, so that was very unusual for him. And then I just have a decorative sticker with the alphabet sticker saying lazy day, and then the bottom photo is a photo of where I was wrapping the presents, and I did add a wrapping present sticker to the center of the photo. Sunday is journaling at the top with some washi tape, and then the middle photo is actually of our Christmas tree on the ground. Our kittens totally destroyed the Christmas tree this year. They knocked it down numerous times. I did not put any ornaments on it this year, and that is why we actually ended up taking down the Christmas tree 3 days before Christmas because they totally destroyed it. So, and then on the bottom is another piece of the wrapping paper, and I did stamp out the words Bah Humbug on there, and I did trace them with a journaling pen just to help them pop off there a little bit. And the Bah Humbug is because we took down the Christmas tree before Christmas. But I really like how the spread came together. I do like my spreads to be really full. I don't like to have a ton of white space. And I love how that strand of lights just really pops on the page. It's difficult to see in the video, but when looking at it in my spread, it really does jump out at you because it does add just another layer of dimension. And I did trace around those bulbs with a white pen just to help them pop off the page even more. So if you have any questions about any of the products I used, any of the techniques, anything that I did during this video, please leave a comment below. I will answer any of the questions that you have, and I am just so grateful that you stuck with me through this video, and I hope you all have a great weekend. Thanks.